Don't move or I'll use this.
Get off me!
Tell me what I want to know.
The knife gleamed
me
under
go!
the flickering
You're not
streetlight
going
as it
anywhere.
pressed against
Please
Soyeon's
stop.
Be
throat.
quiet.
Her ex-boyfriend's breath was hot against her ear. His voice a venomous whisper. You think you can just walk away from me? You think some pathetic janitor can protect you? Her heart hammered against her ribs. The alley was empty. No witnesses. No escape. Just her, the man who once promised to love her, and the cold bite of steel against her skin. Then, headlights flooded the alley. A black SUV screeched to a halt, and 4 men in suits poured out like shadows given form. But Soyeon's eyes were locked on the man stepping out of the back seat. Her husband. Her gentle, quiet husband who mopped floors and smiled shyly when she kissed him goodnight. Except this man wore a tailored suit that cost more than their yearly rent. His eyes, usually so warm, were arctic and lethal. Get your hands off my wife, he said, voice calm as death itself, or I'll break every bone in your body before sunrise. This is the story of a black African woman who was mocked, disgraced, and humiliated for marrying a man everyone believed was nothing more than a janitor. But what none of them knew was that the janitor at the cafe was hiding a secret powerful enough to shake Seoul to its core. A wealthy Korean mafia boss whose name alone inspired fear. Settle in because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. And if you love intense, unpredictable stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Now let's get back to the main story. They say debts die with the dead. That's what Soyeon believed when she watched them lower her father into the ground on that gray October morning. The rain mixed with her tears as the priest spoke words she couldn't hear over the roaring in her ears. Her mother stood beside her, barely upright, leaning on a cane she'd need for the rest of her life after the stroke. No siblings. No relatives who cared enough to show up. Just the two of them and a debt that stretched longer than any rope could hang. 3 days after the funeral they came. The Dokbi crew, Seoul's shadow organization, whispered about in gambling dens and back alley bars. Men in dark coats who didn't need to raise their voices to make you understand that your life belonged to them now. Your father owed us 12 million won, the man with the scar across his cheek said, sitting in her tiny living room like he owned it. That debt doesn't disappear just because he did. Soyeon's hands trembled. I don't have that kind of money. Then you'll work it off. His smile was a blade. We have many businesses that need young women. I'm sure we can find something suitable for someone like you. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Soyeon felt her stomach turn. Give me time, she begged. Please, just give me time to figure something out. He stood adjusting his coat. You have 1 month. After that, we take what we're owed. One way or another. The next weeks blurred together in a haze of desperation. Soyeon took every job she could find. Morning shifts at a convenience store, afternoon deliveries for a pharmacy, night cleaning at an office building. She slept 3 hours if she was lucky. Her mother's medicine alone ate most of what she earned. Then she met Taejoon. He appeared at the convenience store one night, handsome in an expensive suit, buying cigarettes he didn't smoke. He came back the next night. And the next. Always at closing time, always with questions that felt too personal too quickly. A girl like you shouldn't be working this hard, he said one night, leaning against the counter. You deserve someone to take care of you. Red flags waved in Soyeon's mind, but desperation has a way of blurring vision. When the Dokbi men came back with 2 weeks left on her deadline, Taejoon was there.
Not a chance.
He stepped between them and Soyeon with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. I'll cover her debt, he announced. All of it. Right now. The scarred man studied him with narrowed eyes. And what do you want in return? Taejoon turned to Soyeon. His smile warm but his eyes calculating. Just her company. That's all. Soyeon should have known. Should have seen the trap closing around her. But when you're drowning, you don't question the hand that pulls you up. You just grab it and hold on. 6 months later, Soyeon learned that sometimes the hand pulling you from the water just wants to drag you somewhere deeper. Taejoon didn't hit her. He didn't need to. His control came in other forms. The way he checked her phone every night, reading through every message. The mandatory location tracking he installed on her device. The friends who slowly stopped calling because he made every interaction so uncomfortable they gave up trying to reach her. I paid off your debt. He'd remind her whenever she protested. I saved you and your mother. The least you can do is show some gratitude. Gratitude meant being available whenever he called. Gratitude meant dressing how he wanted, speaking how he approved, existing in the exact shape he demanded. Gratitude meant disappearing piece by piece until Soyeon looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the hollow-eyed woman staring back. The night she decided to leave, they'd been at dinner with his business associates. She'd laughed at another man's joke, nothing inappropriate, just polite conversation. Taejoon's hand had closed around her wrist under the table, squeezing until she felt bones grinding. In the car afterward, he didn't yell. That would have been easier somehow. You embarrassed me tonight, he said quietly, eyes on the road. Made me look weak in front of important people. I think we need to establish some clearer boundaries about your behavior. I was just being polite, Soyeon whispered. You were flirting. Don't insult my intelligence by lying. I wasn't. His hand shot out, not hitting her but gripping her jaw, forcing her to look at him. Don't lie to me. That night, after he fell asleep, Soyeon packed a single bag. She took nothing he'd given her. Not the clothes, not the jewelry, not the phone. Just her mother's photo, her identification, and what little cash she'd managed to hide over the months. She left before sunrise and didn't look back. The Riverside Cafe wasn't much to look at. Squeezed between a convenience store and a pharmacy on Seoul's quieter south side. It had old wooden floors that creaked, mismatched chairs, and a kitchen that perpetually smelled like vanilla and fresh bread. But it was hiring. They didn't ask questions about her past, and most importantly, Taejoon would never think to look for her in a place this ordinary. You ever waitressed before? The owner, an older woman with kind eyes, asked during the interview. No, but I'm a fast learner. I'll work hard, I promise. The woman studied her for a long moment, seeing something in Soyeon's desperate eyes that made her nod. When can you start? Right now. Soyeon moved into a tiny apartment 3 subway stops away, paid rent in cash, and told exactly no one where she was. She changed her phone number, deleted every social media account, and became as invisible as a person could be in a city of 10 million. The first month, she jumped at every shadow, certain Taejoon would find her. But as weeks turned to months and he didn't appear, Soyeon started to breathe again. Started to remember what it felt like to exist without constantly calculating how to avoid triggering someone's anger. The cafe became her sanctuary. The work was simple but satisfying. Take orders, serve food, clean tables, count the register at closing. The other staff were friendly but respected boundaries. Soyeon kept to herself mostly, existing in the comfortable anonymity of routine. Then one day she noticed the janitor. His name was Jihoon, she learned from the schedule posted in the back. He worked morning shifts, arriving before anyone else to clean the floors, take out trash, prep the kitchen for the day. He was quiet to the point of invisible, the kind of person you could work alongside for weeks without really seeing. But Soyeon noticed him because he noticed things. The first time was when she burned her hand on the espresso machine steam wand. She'd hissed in pain but tried to keep working, not wanting to make a fuss. Within seconds, Jihoon appeared beside her with a cold compress and burn ointment, said nothing, just gently placed them in her hand and went back to mopping. The second time was after a particularly difficult customer had yelled at her over a wrong order that wasn't even her mistake. She'd held it together during the confrontation, but afterward, her hands shook as she tried to make the next coffee. A warm cup of tea appeared on the counter beside her during her break, prepared exactly how she liked it even though she'd never told him her preference. He didn't speak much, this quiet janitor with gentle eyes. But when he did, his voice was soothing in a way that made tension drain from Soyeon's shoulders. Rough morning? He asked one day, finding her crying in the storage room after her mother called to say the medical bills were piling up again. Soyeon wiped her eyes quickly. I'm fine. Just life, you know. He nodded slowly, not pushing, just present. The owner keeps honey in the top cabinet. Good for stress. And crying. Both valid responses to life. She laughed despite herself, a real laugh that surprised her. When was the last time she'd laughed? Jihoon smiled too, a small genuine curve of lips that reached his eyes. There we go, he said softly. That's better. 3 months into working at the cafe, Soyeon realized she was developing feelings for the janitor, and the thought terrified her. She'd promised herself, no more men, no more complications, no more giving pieces of herself away to someone who'd eventually use them as weapons. She was better off alone, safer that way. But Jihoon made it difficult to remember those promises. It happened gradually, like winter turning to spring. The way he always took the heavier tasks when he noticed her struggling with something. The extra pastry appeared beside her lunch. The small acts of kindness that asked for nothing in return. The night everything shifted started with rain. The cafe closed late due to inventory. By the time Soyeon finished counting stock, the sky had opened up, rain hammering the streets like accusations. She stood at the entrance, groaning when she remembered her umbrella sitting uselessly at home. I can walk you. She turned to find Jihoon beside her, holding a simple black umbrella, his expression as calm as always. Oh, you don't have to. I know, he said. But I'd like to. If that's okay. They walked slowly through rain-soaked streets, sharing the umbrella, shoulders accidentally brushing. Soyeon was hyper-aware of his presence beside her, the quiet comfort of it. No demands, no expectations, just companionship. When they reached her building, he handed her the umbrella. Keep it, he said. I have another. But how will you? I'll manage. You need it more than I do. The next day, she arrived at work to find a small umbrella keychain on her locker. Pink, cheerful, with a tiny note attached. For emergencies. J. Soyeon held it in her palm, feeling something dangerous blooming in her chest. Something warm and terrifying and utterly stupid given everything she'd been through. But she couldn't seem to stop it. Weeks passed. Their interactions remained small, careful, like two people dancing around something neither wanted to name. Jihoon never pushed, never crossed lines, just existed in this steady, reliable way that made Soyeon's heavily guarded heart crack open despite her best efforts. Then one night, as they closed the cafe together, he finally asked, Soyeon. His voice was uncertain, almost nervous. Would you? I mean, if you're not interested, that's completely fine, but would you maybe want to have dinner with me? Just us. Outside of work. Her first instinct was to say no, to protect herself, to run before she could get hurt again. But when she looked at Jihoon, at his gentle eyes and nervous smile, at this man who'd shown her nothing but kindness for months without asking for anything in return, she heard herself say, yes, I'd like that. His smile could have powered the entire city. Their first date was simple. A street food stall near the river, cheap but delicious, the kind of place where you sat on plastic stools and didn't care because the company made everything taste better. Jihoon was nervous in an endearing way, stumbling over words occasionally, laughing at himself when he did. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He didn't dominate conversation or talk over her. He was just present, attentive, real. Tell me about your family, Soyeon asked as they walked along the river afterward, the city lights reflecting on the water. Jihoon's expression shifted slightly, something flickering behind his eyes before smoothing out. Not much to tell. I'm an only child. My parents passed when I was young. Been on my own mostly. That must have been hard. You learn to adapt. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes this time. What about you? Any siblings? No, just me and my mother. She's not well. Medical issues. Soyeon didn't elaborate on the debt, the Dokbi crew, the weight of responsibility that never quite lifted from her shoulders. Some truths were too heavy for first dates. I'm sorry, Jihoon said softly. That must be difficult. We manage. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jihoon stopped, turning to face her. Soyeon, I want you to know something. I don't have much to offer. I'm just a janitor. I work with my hands, I keep things clean, I go home to a small apartment and usually fall asleep watching TV. My life is simple and probably boring to most people. It doesn't sound boring to me, Soyeon said honestly. It sounds peaceful. He smiled, relief washing over his features. Peaceful. Yeah, that's what I was going for. If only she'd noticed the hesitation in his voice when he said it. The way his eyes never quite met hers during that particular confession. The slight tension in his shoulders that suggested the peace he claimed was built on foundations she couldn't see. But Soyeon was falling, And falling people rarely look down to see what they're falling toward. Their relationship deepened slowly over the next months. Jihoon was everything Taejoon hadn't been. Patient, kind, respectful of boundaries. He never demanded access to her phone, never questioned where she was or who she was with, never made her feel small or controlled. He cooked for her simple meals in his modest apartment. He remembered small details like how she took her coffee and which songs made her smile. He held her hand like she was precious, kissed her like she mattered. But there were mysteries too. Small inconsistencies that Soyeon noticed but rationalized away. He had no social media presence. None. Not even an old, abandoned Facebook profile. He never talked about friends or past relationships or really anything about his life before the cafe. His phone would buzz occasionally with messages that made his expression shift into something unreadable before he excused himself to another room. Once she'd seen a scar on his shoulder when he changed shirts. Long, raised, the kind that came from something sharp and intentional. When she asked about it, he'd smiled and said, "Accident when I was younger. Stupid kid stuff." The explanation felt rehearsed. But Soyeon pushed the doubts away. Everyone had secrets, didn't they? Everyone had pasts they preferred not to discuss. What mattered was how Jihoon treated her now, in the present. And in the present, he was gentle and steady and safe. That was enough. It had to be enough. 6 months into their relationship, on a quiet bridge overlooking the Han River with the city glowing behind them, Jihoon proposed. He pulled a simple silver ring from his pocket, nothing expensive or flashy, just a clean band that caught the light. "Soon," he said, voice thick with emotion, "I know I'm not wealthy. I know I can't give you luxury or excitement or anything extraordinary. But everything I am, everything I have, I want to share with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to build a life, a simple, peaceful life together. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Soyeon's cheeks. After years of chaos, of pain, of feeling like she was constantly running from something or towards something or just running, this man was offering her stillness, safety, a home. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Jihoon's exhale was shaky with relief, as if he'd been holding his breath for years. He slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands and kissed her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "Thank you," he murmured against her lips. "Thank you for choosing me." Their wedding was small but beautiful. A few co-workers from the cafe, some neighbors from their building, and a homemade meal that Jihoon prepared himself because he insisted he wanted every part of their wedding to be personal. Soyeon's mother attended via video call, too weak to travel but smiling through tears as she watched her daughter marry a man who treated her like she was worth protecting. As Jihoon placed the ring on her finger and promised to love her in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, Soyeon felt like she'd finally won. Finally escaped the darkness and found light. She didn't know the darkness had just been waiting, patient and inevitable, for the perfect moment to reveal itself. Married life started beautifully. Jihoon was an attentive husband, cooking breakfast before work, leaving little notes in her lunch bag, calling during his breaks just to hear her voice. But slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice at first, small cracks appeared in the facade. He started disappearing at night. "I picked up some extra work," he'd explain, kissing her forehead. "Security gigs, overnight cleaning contracts. We could use the money." He'd return at dawn sometimes, exhausted, with bruises he claimed came from moving furniture or slipping on wet floors. The explanations made sense individually but started feeling rehearsed when repeated too often. His phone buzzed constantly now, messages he always checked in another room. When she asked about it once, he'd smiled and said, "Just the security company. They're always checking in." Then there was the money. Soyeon found it by accident while organizing their closet. An envelope tucked beneath folded clothes, thick with cash. She opened it with trembling hands and felt her breath catch. Easily several million won. Far more than a janitor and part-time security guard could earn in months. She placed it back exactly as she found it, hands shaking, mind racing. Was it drug money? Gambling? Debt repayment for something dangerous? She wanted to ask but was terrified of the answer. The final crack appeared on a Sunday morning. Soyeon woke to find Jihoon sitting on the edge of their bed, fully dressed in a suit she'd never seen before. Black, expensive, tailored perfectly to his frame. He stared at the floor with an expression she'd never witnessed, tense and focused, jaw tight with something that looked like violence restrained. Jihoon. She touched his back. Are you okay? He blinked, the dangerous expression vanishing instantly, replaced by his familiar gentle smile. I'm fine. Just have something to handle today. What kind of something? Work thing. I'll be back soon. He kissed her forehead, grabbed a jacket that matched the expensive suit and left. Soyeon sat in bed for a long time after he was gone, staring at the space where her husband had been, wondering who exactly she'd married. The day had been long and exhausting. The cafe had been understaffed, customers had been demanding, and Soyeon's feet ached by the time she finally closed up. He was inches away now, backing her against the alley wall. Soyeon's heart hammered against her ribs. There was no one around. No witnesses. No escape. There are no cameras here, Taejoon whispered, his hand rising toward her face. No one to interrupt us this time. No one to protect you. His hands grabbed her neck so hard. She was almost suffocating her when headlights flooded the alley. A black SUV tore around the corner with a screech of tires, stopping so abruptly the air itself seemed to jolt. Four men in dark suits poured out, moving with military precision, forming a protective barrier around Soyeon before Taejoon could process what was happening. But Soyeon's eyes were locked on the back door of the SUV as it opened. Jihoon stepped out. Except it wasn't her Jihoon in worn jeans and a humble smile. This man wore a black tailored suit, leather gloves, an expression of absolute calm that somehow radiated more danger than Taejoon's rage ever could. He moved with the confidence of someone who owned the night itself, walking slowly, deliberately, each step purposeful. His men parted for him like water. Step away from my wife, Jihoon said, voice quiet and utterly lethal. Now. Taejoon tried to recover his bravado. This is between me and... Jihoon's hand moved so fast Soyeon barely saw it. He grabbed Taejoon's wrist, twisted it with controlled force that made Taejoon cry out in pain, and then in one fluid motion, threw him backward. Taejoon crashed to the ground, gasping. You don't touch her, Jihoon said, standing over him. You don't look at her. You don't think about her. You run right now, and if I ever hear you've come near her again, I won't be this merciful. Taejoon scrambled to his feet, all his previous confidence shattered. He ran without another word, disappearing into the night like the coward he'd always been. The alley fell silent except for the hum of the SUV's engine. Jihoon turned to Soyeon, and instantly all the danger drained from his expression. Are you hurt? She shook her head, unable to speak. Her gentle husband, her quiet janitor, had just commanded armed men and broken her ex-boyfriend's wrist without breaking a sweat. Who are you? She whispered. Jihoon's jaw tightened. I didn't want you to find out this way. Find out what? He took her hand gently, so gently it almost broke her heart. That I'm not a janitor. I never was. I'm the head of the Biko crew. The men in this car, the dozens more throughout the city, they all answer to me. I'm the person your ex should have feared from the beginning. Soyeon felt the world tilt. You're a mafia boss? Her heart slammed harder, but then was this mafia boss not an angel? The bigger surprise was pending. I tried to leave that life, he said quietly. I wanted to be normal. To be the kind of man who deserved someone like you. The cafe, the janitor job, all of it was real. My feelings for you are real. But my past, I can't erase it. And now that you're my wife, you need protection. You need to know the truth. Her legs gave out. Jihoon caught her instantly, holding her up, his touch still so careful despite the violence he just displayed. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. If you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what happens next will change everything. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Jihoon brought Soyeon home that night and stayed with her until she stopped shaking. He didn't explain more, didn't push her to accept or understand or forgive. He just held her hand and existed quietly beside her, the same gentle presence she'd fallen in love with. By morning he was gone. He returned at noon with groceries, acting like the revelation from the previous night hadn't fundamentally altered their reality. Did you eat breakfast? He asked, unpacking vegetables. Soyeon stared at him. Jihoon, we need to talk about. I know. He set down the groceries and faced her. But right now, I need you to understand one thing. That man will never touch you again. No one will. I have people watching our building, your route to work, every place you regularly visit. You're safe now. Truly safe. Safe with a mafia boss for a husband? He flinched. I understand if you want to leave. I'll arrange protection for you regardless. You'll never have to. I didn't say I wanted to leave, Soyeon interrupted. I said we need to talk. There's a difference. Something like hope flickered in his eyes. They didn't talk that day. Or the next. The truth sat between them like a third presence in their small apartment, acknowledged but unaddressed. Jihoon went back to acting normal, and Soyeon pretended not to notice the armed men now permanently stationed outside their building. Then came the landlord. He arrived 3 days later, banging on their door like he was trying to break it down. Soyeon opened it to find him red-faced and aggressive. Lease is up, he announced without preamble. New building owner, new rules. Renew today or get out. Soyeon blinked, confused. We have 2 months left on our contract. Not anymore. He waved a paper in her face. See this? New ownership. Either pay 3 months up front right now or start packing. That's not legal, she pleaded, rubbing her hands so hard. I don't care about legal, he snarled. I care about getting paid. And I know your husband's situation. Janitors don't earn a good amount to live in a full apartment as this, do they? So either pay up or get out. Your choice. His finger jabbed toward her face, close enough that she smelled the alcohol on his breath. Soyeon's hands trembled, not from fear of him, but from exhaustion. She was so tired of people trying to bully her, so tired of feeling small and helpless. We'll have the money when my husband returns, she said quietly. Not good enough. He pushed past her into the apartment, looking around like he owned it. You know what? Forget it. You have until tonight. Pack and go. You can't. Watch me. He turned back with a cruel smile. People like you think you can just coast through life. But this city doesn't work that way. Losers get pushed out. That's reality. After he left, Soyeon sat on the floor and cried. Not loud, dramatic sobs. Just quiet tears of a woman who'd been pushed past her breaking point. She was tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being treated like she didn't matter. An hour later, the door opened. Jihoon walked in, took one look at her red eyes and the eviction notice on the floor, and his entire demeanor changed. He knelt beside her immediately. What happened? The landlord, she whispered. He said we have to leave tonight. He was awful, Jihoon. He got in my face and... She didn't need to finish. Jihoon stood, pulled out his phone, and said 3 words that sent chills down her spine. Bring the cars now. He turned to her, and for the first time since she'd known him, Soyeon saw no gentleness in his expression. Only cold, calculated fury. Stay here, he said quietly. I'll handle this. Jihoon, what are you going to do? She asked with a trembling voice. He kissed her forehead, the tender gesture somehow more terrifying given the violence in his eyes. I'm going to make sure no one ever makes you cry again. Leave the rest to me. Then he walked out, and Soyeon realized her gentle husband wasn't just dangerous. He was capable of things she couldn't even imagine. And somewhere in the building below, a landlord who'd made a terrible mistake was about to learn exactly who he'd threatened. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a love story. It's a story about masks we wear, the truths we hide, and what happens when the person you married turns out to be someone completely different. So here's my question for you. What do you think Jihoon, the man who built an empire on fear while pretending to mop floors, is about to do to that landlord? Drop your predictions in the comments below. Your answer might just influence how this story continues.